I love rocks like this. This is like an instant waterfall. That's one of the like probably 1,000 little things you can do to have like a professional looking installation when you're finished. We're going with 2 of the Aquascape SLD 5 to 9,000 adjustable flow pumps, which means we're going to be moving some water. Where'd you go, Ant?
It's hiding. I was reading the box.
When you're working with big boulders in the waterfall, a shovel is going to be your best friend. Sometimes your only friend.
You have enough friends?
Hey guys, welcome back. It's Jack from Atlantis Water Gardens. We're here for part 2 of this really awesome pondless waterfall and stream build. If you haven't seen part 1, click on that link right there and go check that out. We're at the point now where our 1,000-gallon reservoir is installed. We've got a lot of rock work set in there that's kind of shaping out our waterfall coming into our reservoir. We're at the point now where we're digging out for a beach type area. We wanted to take and slope this in so from the house we'll be able to see clearly right down to that waterfall that's behind where Bowley is. Notched out over here on the right side, we're going to be putting a flat stone in that just kind of frames this out, because eventually there's going to be like a walking path that goes through here. That's going to kind of set that off and then take it so that you can go that way along the stream that's going to be back there. What Bowley and the guys did was they cut a nice trench right along the lawn here, went down a few inches and then sloped it in. What that's going to do is when we lay our fabric and liner back and put our cobble in, our cobble will lock right in up against the lawn area, making it nice and flush. We don't want those rocks like piled up and sticking up above there. It just doesn't look right, and then it would take away from the overall aesthetic of the stream. So you can imagine standing here looking down, right behind those guys will be the waterfall. So that's going to look really great. Our whole goal today is to get this reservoir and this lower stream section done so we can move on to where that machine is. We actually have to do a seam from the reservoir liner onto the rest of our stream liner in that spot, and then we can start placing the big boulders. We've got a big 4-foot tall waterfall going in back there, which Bowley and Anthony spent yesterday building this entire retaining wall for. What I like about this, it's got great structural support. It's back here in the trees, so literally no one is going to see this, and it gives us instant elevation. From this point here, we've got a vantage point way over there, that pavilion, and you can see that there's the sunroom. So this is going to be an important spot here. The reason we had to get up so high in this spot was so that you could see it from these different areas, because this backyard is just covered in water features, and this one had to stand out. I think the homeowner here is at a Water Features Anonymous meeting because she has kind of a problem. Well, not really, not for me, but she's got 7 actual water features on this property, including this one, which is amazing. I mean, just walk out in the morning. She wanted to be able to look out every window in her house and see water. And you could see water out of pretty much every window in the house. She's actually talking about 1 more possibly when they put an addition on. I mean, 8 water features, 1 property. Maybe then you got a problem. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let's get it rolling. Okay, so we have to do a seam from our reservoir liner onto our stream waterfall liner. Our reservoir liner goes down underneath all our aqua blocks and back out the other side into this section of stream. And it stops right about here. We've got another 25 by 25 piece that we're gonna have to seam on. This is gonna be where that big waterfall is. There'll be a pooling area and then stream section which connects to this. The most important thing about seams is getting a nice, clean, flat spot to do them. For this, we're gonna use a 2x10 piece of wood. This one's about 14 feet long. Our double-sided seam tape is about 3 inches wide. So I can get this up nice and flat. I'm gonna use some clamps and make sure I hold that good and straight. I don't want any wrinkles in my liner when I'm doing the seam. Once I get that double-sided seam tape on, I can then take the nice straight edge of this side, marry it up, fold it over, and prep it with our primer. Now, seams become real difficult when you have to do them like inside a pond where you can't use a board. And then it's like critical making sure that you don't get any air bubbles in there. That's what can make a seam fail, is when air bubbles get in there, maybe some dirt in there, and it starts to lift and separate that seam. And it could happen over time, not just right away. So you want to make sure that it's almost surgical. Like when you're going in there and cleaning, like wash everything down, make sure there's no dust, no sand, no nothing in your workspace. Take your time and you'll find some success with seaming. Hopefully you don't have to do it that often, but we seam quite a bit because we do projects where there's all kinds of like hard turns, and we might even do like another section on a pond. We're maxed out with the piece of liner we have. So we're quite accustomed to it, but it all comes down to that prep work. So remember that if you're gonna seam, clean, 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 then seam. And this is what your finished seam should look like. Now we're gonna go ahead and pull the board out from this end here. We'll slide that 2x10 right on out of there, and we are good to go. You can see everything is down nice and neat. You wanna make sure your edges are really sealed down well. One of the things I didn't mention was you saw us put this tent up. You don't wanna do this out in the sun. It's not gonna set up well. The primer does like some funky stuff. Your seam tape gets super warm and it starts sliding around. You want to make sure you do this in some shady areas, or you can do it first thing in the morning or at the end of the day. Now that that's done, we'll get this tent out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and fold this whole liner back into the stream section that we have done already, and we're gonna grade this section here to get prepped for the rest of this. So once we get that done, we can actually start framing out some of the big boulders, and I've got some in mind already. But one of the rocks I saw in the yard that I brought is this one here. It's about 3.5 feet tall, 4 feet tall, but at the top, I love rocks like this. It's been broken off to the point where it's got a nice flat edge here with a built-in shoulder. This is like an instant waterfall. If I stand this up vertical, I'll have the water coming off of here. It's being blocked on the left side. Then I gotta find something that'll marry up on this right side. I usually like to do something that's kind of angled. What that's gonna do is give me the ability to come down in front of the rock, and when it falls off here, it can hit a secondary waterfall and shoot off to the side or out in front. Probably a little bit of both. And then when I get behind it, I could probably do an equalizer rock that's gonna be like maybe a 1 foot drop before it hits that. So I'll get a lot of action out of basically just 3 rocks. Yeah, I know these are 1 or 2 ton boulders. It's probably not what you're working with at home, but you can scale this down. So if you're working with rocks that are hand manageable and they have some of those characteristics, you can replicate that as well. Let me show you guys a little pro tip. This is seam tape on top of the liner. Now there's nothing wrong with the liner here. It's just there was some folds. So you see this fold here, there was a fold here, one here. If you fold them in the direction of the water flow, the water's gonna be flowing this way, and you seam tape them down, they're not gonna pop up through your gravel. There's nothing worse than seeing it all finished and there's like a black strip of rubber hanging out because the liner popped up through there, which will happen. So if you're doing anything that's gonna have twists and turns in it, you're gonna end up with folds. One way to prevent that from being a problem is take a little bit of seam tape. We actually took some of the 6-inch, cut it in half so it's only 3 inches wide, pulled it down, put the primer on, and then put the seam tape on, holding those folds down. They will never be a problem. That's one of the, like, probably 1,000 little things you can do to have like a professional looking installation when you're finished. So take your time, think about those things that are going to be a problem in the future and address them while you're building. You'll be happy. If you guys remember those rocks I showed you earlier, this is how we used them. This is the main set of cascades coming down from our top elevation. So there'll be a rock up behind here kind of dropping down and then hitting off these rocks. This one was laying down before and I showed you that flat spot. It's about like 5 Starbucks wide right there. But here's that natural shoulder I was showing you. We'll come off of that with a frame rock back this way and kind of corral the water off of this. We're also going to be feeding a waterfall from back here straight down, and then it'll come off of this rock this way, kind of in on itself and out in front. A little bit to be fed from here, so there'll be a lot of action in this space because of those rocks. And you can see how this left-hand side gets flanked. Look how tight that boulder fit. I mean, I couldn't have made a better rock. That looks awesome. Now we can start coming off this way and closing this up. I got a gap back in here. I actually want to step back behind this, create some more shape inside the stream. I'm gonna see if I can find something that fits in that slot, and then we'll layer back and build up to our wall elevation on this side. Over here, we'll be doing the same thing. We want to come off the right side of this, probably with something lower. I mean, I could stick a big rock here and just close it off, but then it starts to look like very in your face, just like a big wall of rock. So if we layer something out in front of it, and then we could probably even step behind and slide something in back there. That's going to corral our water, frame out for our waterfall that's up there, and I think it'll look much nicer if it's kind of stepping back like 1, 2, 3 rocks. Then we'll come off of this side outside the liner, and we'll close off, meet up with this, and that'll complete the circuit. On the opposite side of the stream, we are keeping this all super low. I love what Anthony did right here. A little bit of stone wall work, piecing those stones in that so that just a continuous level from this rock all the way to this one, be a great little walking path area, and we're going to kind of mirror that throughout the rest of this pool. Brennan's working on doing some plumbing right now for our pumps. We are actually not using check valves on this one. The homeowner wants to be able to run this in the wintertime. If there is any sort of problem with the pumps, if a pump dies, it'll allow that water to backflow back down and not get trapped inside the pipe. That's the reason we're not using check valves here. We're going with 2 of the Aquascape SLD 5 to 9,000 adjustable flow pumps. Those are great pumps. I love the way these work. They put out great water, and you can actually adjust the flow up and down between 5 and 9,000 gallons per hour. 2 of those are going in here, which means we're going to be moving some water. Where'd you go, Ant?
It's hiding. I was reading the box. You know what to read?
It's going to be awesome. When you're working with big boulders in the waterfall, a shovel is going to be your best friend. Sometimes your only friend.
You have enough friends?
When we want to set a big rock, if it's not fitting right, we got to pull all the liner and fabric up and then excavate so we can get another big one in. That's the beauty of working with liner. So if you were doing, like, let's say a waterfall in a concrete pool, there's no digging. You're just stuck with what you got. With this, I can make just about any rock fit the way I want it to. And then we get that layering, right? Working from the bottom all the way up to the top, one rock behind the other, kind of sinking it in so you don't see the bottom of each one. This just looks, ooh, so great. This came together on the left side perfectly. And all these big cavities here, we're gonna fill it up with gravel to a certain point, and then we're gonna put fabric in there. We wanna fill up about 6 or 8 inches of dirt in here, because eventually what's gonna happen is the homeowner's gonna put some ground cover, some sedums, some phlox maybe, growing out of these spaces all in here. How fantastic will that look with just plants coming out around the rocks? Kind of, I could even see a curtain of phlox coming down here, hiding most of this boulder, except for maybe like a triangle like this. That will look fantastic. What's great about this point of the job is we're 4 days in, and we got to set maybe like 4 more large rocks, and we're done. We're done setting rocks. Then comes all that finish work, like getting our diffusers in for where we're gonna start the waterfall, our plumbing hookups, all the edging that's gotta happen. Like we're gonna continue all this flat work here along this side of the stream, and then the graveling, grading, clean up, and then plug it in and fire it up. You have to come back on the next video because we are going to finish this thing. I promise you're gonna see it run. I can tell you right now, just by the way this rock work's turning out, it's gonna be probably my favorite water feature in this yard. Never mind the waterfall, the way this stream is gonna wind through here and end up in this 1,000-gallon reservoir. You don't wanna miss it. Tell your friends about us. Tell your aunt. I mean, we're good guys. You can refer us. I promise we won't make you look bad. Hit that subscribe button. Come on back. See you on the next one.